A gunshot wound. The child was taken to an area hospital where, unfortunately, I'm saddened to report to the community that the child has been pronounced and is no longer with us. I want to say my condolences certainly to the family of this young child. This is the holiday season, and I can't even begin to imagine what this family is going to be going through. But my thoughts and prayers, and the prayers of the Metropolitan Police Department officers, especially those who were on the scene, our first responders, go out to the family who's impacted by this. I also just want to say to our community, guns in our community, in no way, shape, form, or fashion, when we see these types of tragedies, can we, I don't think we can emphasize how serious an issue the guns are in our communities. And when there are firearms that are present in the home, sometimes those firearms can unfortunately find themselves in spaces and places where they shouldn't be, and young children are on the receiving end of that. So we're still very early in the investigation. We don't know a whole lot right now of actually how this child sustained the injury that he sustained, but we are investigating, and as the information becomes available, we will be able to make that information available to the public. Again, I want to offer my deepest condolences to this family that has been impacted by this tragedy today.
Chief, there are reports that the child may have actually accidentally shot himself. Is there any indication that this was self-inflicted, or did someone else do this?
It's too early to tell. Obviously, again, we are investigating, but it's just too early to tell exactly what happened. But our investigators, we will get to the bottom of this, and we will certainly make sure that we do what we need to do to hold individuals accountable as well, because I think that's also an important part of this conversation. A child has lost his life, and there should be accountability for that.
Do we know who owned the gun, and if that was a licensed, legal firearm?
We don't know any of that at this time.
Have you recovered that gun?
No, we have not.
Okay, so who was this child alone in a unit? Like, who all was with the child?
We are investigating all of that at this time. We do know that at least one relative, possibly more, were in there with the child at the time of this, but we are investigating that, trying to really get to the bottom of who all were in the unit at the time this child lost his life.
What's your plea to the community at this point, knowing that this weapon is on the street somewhere, and this is obviously a firearm that was in the hands eventually of a 1-year-old child?
Well, my plea is what it has always been, and that is with respect to guns in our community. They have no place in our communities, especially in the hands of people who should not have them, who introduce those firearms, unfortunately, to places and spaces where we have small children who will indiscriminately use firearms in community. We just recently announced our TIP program, our collaboration with the ATF. If there's someone in community that you know of who is in possession of a firearm, we're asking you to call that information into the Metropolitan Police Department anonymously, 202-727-9099. We are willing to pay. We are willing to pay for the arrest of individuals who are in possession of illegal firearms. A community member would not have to come and testify. All we want is the arrest, and we want the gun off of the street. This child's life, I don't think you can put a price tag on what this child's life costs. So whatever we pay for a tip or information that comes in from community members, it's helpful. It's helpful to get these illegal guns off the street.
Chief, basically what you're saying is, if you haven't recovered the gun, that means that someone took that gun here from the scene. Are you looking for someone right now, or do you have anyone in custody?
We're in the very early stages, and we just don't know yet. But I am confident, and the community should be confident, that we will get to the bottom of this, and the person or persons responsible for introducing a gun in this home will be held accountable for that. I don't think that there's any immediate danger to community members, and I think that what happened here was confined to that location. It breaks my heart that we have to stand here on the eve of Thanksgiving, and as you've heard, relatives crying out in despair because this child has lost his life as a result of someone's either carelessness or recklessness. Either way, it's unacceptable, and it will not be tolerated.
Chief, we did see a disturbance that was directed towards that red car further down the road. Do you know how that's linked to this case? Is that the owner of this particular firearm? Is that linked to your investigation in any way?
It is linked to our investigation, and that's a possibility that we're investigating.
Chief, we saw someone taken into custody here within probably last half hour, put in the police car. What can you say about that individual and their role?
What I can tell you is that it's part of our investigation. We're having several discussions with people right now. We've had to take some folks to our homicide branch to have discussions with them about what happened here. Again, we're in the very early stages of this, and as we continue to peel through, I'm confident we'll get to the bottom of this.
What would anyone face should you find that person responsible for having this weapon in the house? What are the charges here, potentially?
Well, the charges could range depending on, the motive. We could be looking at a murder. I don't necessarily believe that that's the case. Or it could be that the person endangered a child. Or it could be that the person just possessed a firearm. We just don't know everything right now. And it would really be premature for me to hone in on one particular thing. What I know is that we have a deceased child. I know that that child died as a result of a gunshot wound.
And Chief, is it fair to say that the gun was removed from this crime scene and you're actively looking for someone and the weapon, or how can we? That's
fair to say. We're actively looking for the firearm. It could be still in the location at some point, but right now, it's the very early stages of the investigation, and we're seeking to really get to the bottom of this as quickly as we possibly can.
Just the other piece of that, the person. Are you looking for the person who had been in possession of it as well?
We may have that person in custody, Darcy. I just don't know. We're talking to people, and we really have to get to the bottom of this. I want to thank you guys for coming out today, obviously covering this very tragic event, unfortunately, on the eve of Thanksgiving. But I think the message that we need to carry forward with community is that illegal firearms or firearms in the hands of the wrong people can oftentimes have very tragic results. If you know of someone that's in possession of one of these illegal firearms, please make notification to the Metropolitan Police Department. Thank you.